I was actually very nervous and worried that he was going to ask me to bring out the chair and talk to the chair. So now that I've gotten through that, I think I can do the rest. It's really exciting actually to be here in Providence because Providence is actually one of our 213 cities across the country that have made a deep, broad, and substantial commitment to kids through play. And last year we recognized them as one of our 213 communities across the country as a Playful City USA. So it's really an honor for me to be here in the hometown of one of our Playful City USA communities. So thank you, Providence, and all that you've done for kids and families. I do what I do because when I was 2 years old, and my father, who was a cross-country truck driver, went to unload a truck, and my mother had the 8th of us Hammond kids, he never came back. And for 2 years, as hard as she tried, after several nervous breakdowns, I became a ward of the court and sent 3,500 miles away to a group home where almost 500 kids were being raised. For 14 years, I lived in this group home. I was a product of charity and philanthropy and kind of nameless, faceless people who did amazing things for me, not knowing what my circumstance actually was. We would participate in athletic programs and band and arts and culture and craft. And as we saw other schools across the country back in the early and late 80s start to lose funding, consolidate, and get smaller, we got everything we wanted because millions of members across the country kept sending 10 cents a day, a big charity dollar, to this group home to support the almost 13,000 kids that have now graduated from there. I dropped out of college, was living on a couch in Washington, D.C. at 23 years old, read an article about 2 young kids, Aisha and Clendon. And their story was not like my story. They'd crawled into an abandoned car, suffocated, and died. And a reporter from the Washington Post saw a little blurb in the metro section, almost hidden, about this event, and decided to go down and investigate. And she wrote a front page story on these 2 young kids. And for 3 weeks, she went block by block, neighbor by neighbor, and tried to find what had happened to these 2 young kids. She found great apathy. She found finger pointing. The mayor was blaming the housing authority. The housing authority was blaming Park and Rec department. Neighbors were blaming each other. She also went and for the block by block and for the first time found a park 3 miles away, which is why they crawled into the car in the first place. Not knowing what I was going to do, but recognizing that at the same age that I was when my father left my family and I went to a group home, the trajectory of Aisha and Clendon were 100% different than mine because a family, a community, frankly gave me a bear hug, wrapped themselves around me, and gave me an opportunity. And frankly, it struck my justice nerve that said, why couldn't these kids have the exact same thing? I didn't want to start an organization. Many years later, everybody named me a social entrepreneur. And to be quite honest and frank, I still can't spell entrepreneur. Thank gosh for spell check on the computer. But what I knew was that by building a sense of community like I had and providing spaces for communities to come together and for kids to have an outlet, you can solve 2 problems. You can solve the problem of getting kids outside, and at the same time, we can create beautifully aesthetic places with the participation of the people who live right there. 16 years later, we've now constructed over 2,200 playgrounds with 1 million volunteers literally across the country. And as proud as I am of that, to be quite honest, I also think about and recognize that right now, Kids are going back to school, almost 52% of them, without recess. Only 1 in 5 kids live within access to a park. We see play as a luxury, not an absolute necessity. We don't see play how kids connect to learning. Play is the foundation for learning. Plus, it's fun. Now I think the research is actually starting to catch up with what we intuitively know, that by playing, kids build relationships. By playing, kids fail and pick themselves up. By playing, kids work out differences with other kids who do not look like them, speak like them, or act like them. It's true that now kids spend less than 1 hour a day outside, and a lot of that is actually in transportation, commuting to school or to activities. In a book Tom Ferry wrote, he talked about the culture of youth sports, that we put kids in adult organized activities sooner and sooner, and they start at 3 and 4 and 5, and they drop out by 6, 7, and 8. Where's the imagination and creativity with an adult blowing a whistle, telling you to kick a ball in a goal or put the ball in a hoop? I'm not saying those things aren't necessary, but what we do know is that the best type of play is all type of play, particularly the imaginative, the creative, the expressive side of it, that frankly sometimes can just be messy too. I think about just now, last week, if you saw the phenomenon last year of Kane's Arcade. A 9-year-old boy that didn't go to soccer camp like all his friends did, but built an arcade in his father's auto garage. And one day, a filmmaker who showed up to get a door handle saw this amazing outlay of what Kane had built over that summer and decided to shine a light on it and made a video out of it that went all over the world. In a few weeks is the 1-year anniversary of that surprise flash mob on now 10-year-old Kane. And Kane has taken the opportunity to, 1, film another video that just came out last week that's already been viewed again 500,000 times, but 2, call upon every community to do a cardboard box challenge. To go out and invent and create and turn boxes into anything you want them to be, and watch how fun it can be, how simple it can be, how imaginative it can be. And if you watch the video and seen what's already happening, it's pretty phenomenal. We need to bring back, in my opinion, a culture of being outside, being unstructured, and frankly, with community. I also know that in trying to save play for kids, we also need to build stronger and healthier communities. And what Kaboom tries to do is not do for the community, but with the community, side by side, in partnership. I've had the opportunity to visit Windsor Cove Apartments in Orlando, Florida, where unfortunately a culture of violence took over for many years, and kids were caught in a crossfire. Until one day, a woman stood up and said, "Nobody else is going to do something about this, I will." A resident. And she got other residents and said, "We need to stop this." And they started to troll their own neighborhood and take responsibility from the bottom up, Robin, not from the top down. That woman became the assistant resident manager of that property and got employed. Became the resident manager of that property. Trained her deputy, who now runs that property, also a resident, and has gone on to several other properties, instituting this same model. I've seen a 72-year-old grandmother, Ray Hood, in San Antonio, Texas, who proverbially had the railroad track between her African American community and the white community. And the white community side had the playground and the railroad tracks between them, and her kids would cross the railroad tracks, recognizing the risk, but still wanting to play. And after 2 years of going to every community meeting and trying to fight it, they built a fence to stop them from coming over. She sprung to action, found us, I don't know how, and we built a small park at Coliseum Oaks together. Ray Hood, at 72 years old, went on to build 7 more playgrounds without us, recognizing that both the process of bringing people together to fight for something and the product, a great place to play, was something everybody should have the opportunity and joy to bear witness on and experience. I'm proud that over the years we've seen this happen again and again. But to the sense of urgency, we get 14,000 requests for 200 playground builds we're going to build this year. The scale of the problem is bigger than what our organization can approach. We've gone to an online community to try to open source how we do what we do so that people can independently replicate it. And now see almost 9,000 playgrounds built that way worldwide, well, without us having to do a single thing for them. And we also need to understand where every play opportunity is for every kid. We think that there are 790,000 playgrounds in the United States. We know where 89,000 of them are. We have a bigger map than what Google has, but it's not enough. It's not enough. So we need to unleash an opportunity for people to go to the park, check in at it, tell us what the quality of it, and then overlay that against data around access, quality, income, college graduation, and show that there's a correlation between play now and an investment in the future. By building more playgrounds and better playgrounds, we can get kids and communities to play longer, play harder, and frankly want to come back and do it more often. We need to bring back a culture of creativity and imagination, of play and community. Imagine that in your backyard, on your street. Now watch this. This is Drew Elementary School in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. 75 years old, never had a playground. 300 volunteers in 6 hours descended on this space, and look at what we did. Look at what we did. If we can do that in New Orleans, what can you do in your own neighborhood, in your own community? This is not simply just about Kaboom. This is about a fundamental belief in what is the best for our kids and for our communities. And just like I was, as unfortunate as my situation and circumstance, a community wrapped themselves around me. A community wrapped themselves around Cain and his concept of the cardboard box challenge. But we must do that for all kids, not some kids. And until we cross that threshold, we're going to, I think, constantly wonder why, instead of leap to what's possible. So please join us in doing small and big things individually and collectively, and together, I know that we'll both save play and build healthier and better communities for all kids. Thank you.